Hi, I'm the True Wise Gamer, giving off my vast knowledge so you may understand games a bit better. When talking about the 7th generation of consoles, there weren't a lot of turn-based RPGs, sadly. But there were still a few, and I thought I would talk about one while I had the chance. That being Blue Dragon, made by Miss Walker. Who's Miss Walker, you ask? Well, let's get into that right now.
After the disastrous launch of Spirit Within, well, Square basically kicked him out. He said he left, but, I don't trust corporate, and most likely he didn't want to burn any bridges he already had. He went out and actually made his own company, which sadly doesn't produce much. Well, they did some stuff at first, but later on, not really. Hell, their last game, Fantasian, which I actually saw and I was like, damn, I want that. But it's on iOS, which just means it's already dead. Which they won't port to consoles for some reason. I'll never get why, because this is really weird. They recently actually gave a statement about their older games about why they're not porting it, which is still stupid because, they can still get money off those games to fund their new games. And I mean, if El Shaddai got a PC port, what's really stopping you? Though speaking on those older games that never got ported, it basically made me just want to buy an Xbox so I could try them. And well, while waiting for Lost Odyssey to be a little cheaper, I actually bought Blue Dragon so I could see what it is, since people kind of usually forget that Blue Dragon was their actual first game, and that's what made me decide to actually cover the game.
But with that out of the way, let's talk about Blue Dragon.
The game begins with our main character fast asleep, soon waking up as the game intro begins. I've seen this art style somewhere. Anyway, the game then tells us every year for the last 10 years, a violet cloud comes around, and when it does, disaster comes as well. For this village, it's usually called the land shark that usually destroys some of their home. But our main character, Shu, decides that's enough and tries to fight it. It goes horribly. However, with the help of his friends, Jiro and Kaluk, they are able to trap it for a moment. However, the monster is still too strong to be held down for long. As we soon learn, it's actually not even a monster, but a robot, as it soon flies above the violet clouds to reveal a base producing the cloud. As we enter, we are introduced to the main villain of the game, Nene. Yes, seriously, that is his name. I'm sorry, I have to go on a minor rant about this. Why is he called Nene? Seriously. Why? And you want to know what the worst part is? He never actually says his name aloud. The other characters learn his name, but they don't actually ever know his name. The only time his name ever comes up was when we were attacking him, and he never said his name. Though speaking on fighting him, as we try to fight him, his shadow suddenly pops out and we get decimated. He then throws us out as we're then suddenly pulled back into a room with crystals. As a voice tells us to then eat them, which they do, they then gain the powers of shadows. Or should I call them something else? Oh well. After a quick escape from the ship, they try to find their way back to their village, and this is where the game starts to get really tedious. By the 6-hour mark, I actually knew particularly at the 6-hour mark, I mentally checked the heck out.
To note how mentally checked out I was of this game's plot, I not only watched the Yakuza stage play, it's actually alright, not bad, but it's doing its own thing at times. The Sengoku Pasara, which is actually pretty okay, for all it's worth, has some good action. Didn't expect that. Hell, I saw the Bleach musical, which was actually pretty cool. Highly recommend them. And I know it sounds mean to the plot, which I kinda am on purpose, but I just really want you to know how mentally checked the hell out I was of this plot.
Just to talk about the plot, it's just that it's just slow. And I just mean slow. It took an hour for the plot to actually even get started, and even then it was wasting time with nothing. This problem is not helped with how bare bones the plot points are even to begin with. There are barely any moments with the cast, and it lacks a moment to invest with them. and is very overall just annoying to get through. For example, Morrow is quite dull and is super annoying throughout the game, and especially at the beginning, because instead of just accepting the help of the team, he just rushes in. He doesn't even bother to explain anything, but I gotta get something. And honestly, they could have done something with Morrow if they had bothered to actually do something. Like, for example, why is Morrow the only one who actually acts that way? Why do they wear pots on their head? Hell, there is also another group called the Gorgo tribe, but they are distrusted too, but even for less reasons, and again, I only saw that through NPC dialogue. Heck, if I didn't even mention them, I'm pretty sure the game would have just forgotten about them to begin with. I mean, for God's sakes, I had to do a side quest that actually had a focus on them. Because if you didn't do them, they just don't exist. I will say at least it did have an idea of a plot at least.
And of course, at least this game does the one good thing. Showing us that penguins are fucking evil. My friends, there's not enough stuff out there showing the true evils of penguins. And if you think I'm being mean to it, I'm sorry, but let's at least talk about the gameplay, which, while I'm still mean at it, I at least say it's fine.
The game is a basic turn-based RPG. You know the deal. You got your team, you got your foes, you just want them dead. This one is really standard, and really the only element worth talking about is the job-esque system. You see, your shadow can actually hold jobs that allow them to do stuff like Final Fantasy V, but that's not all they can do. They can also use other jobs. Well, sort of, I'll explain in a bit. It's kind of like Final Fantasy V again, though in this case it's both limiting and also freeing, as the game allows for more options so that the player can do whatever they want. In this game case, you get allowed free slots, plus the job you already have, meaning you have a lot of room to actually flex. However, the job system is even more basic than 5 in some regard, as there are a few and most of them don't matter, except the one you get at the beginning, plus one other job that basically invalidates the entire system. That basically being the generalist class, the all-rounder, good at everything but master of none. Cause you see, as it gains more ranks, you gain more skill slots, to a maximum of 10, which is more than enough for any type of thing you need for your team member. As long as you upgrade it efficiently, you'll be fine throughout most of the game. Or heck, if you want to break the game early enough, as long as you equip the ability of the barrier class, which has a field ability that basically allows you to run into enemies and get SP, which is basically XP for the jobs. To quickly talk about field abilities are just abilities you can use outside of battle. They'll allow you to do certain things like prevent fights or just sneak around them. The problem is that most of them aren't even useful except the barrier ability because, again, it actually gives a good benefit. And you're just wasting a slot for something that could have been used for a better skill. And with those other skills, you're better off just making your team as generic as possible, while still keeping their main roles since that's what they're spec'd into. Though when I say make everyone generic, that's mostly because of the small job pool. There are only 8 jobs and Generalist is not a job in most cases. That being the Mystic Knight, Monk, Knight, Thief, Black, White, and Thai Magic. Thai Magic is kinda split into 2 with White Magic as well, but you get the idea. And honestly, there's nothing wrong with a small job pool. Like, I had my fun at first, but it's just that the game is overall slow, and I'm not just talking about the story department. See, the game for some reason makes all the animation take so long. Like, seriously, developers, stop making turn-based RPG animation so long. Look, we get it. If they look cool, alright, but at least let us skip them or at least make them short enough that they still look awesome. Cause more tight than not, we just wanted to get it done with. And anything that prolongs it is just bad. And I mean, if Pokemon does it, why can't you? There is also a cool mechanic I didn't mention because, well, I actually forgot to mention it since I rarely used it, though then again it is kind of a me thing. See, the mage and the monk can actually charge up their attack for whatever they want. This can either make it stronger or just cost less mana in general. The cost is that basically you have to wait a little longer to actually use it, which at first I was willing to use, but over time it just became I will say though, the game will actually let you cast it after your character is unstunned or petrified, so that's at least something. It's just that mostly I stopped using it because it didn't help me that much, because by the second disc, most enemies were killed in one shot, which made apparent about how slow this game is.
If you honestly feel like I'm being way too mean on this game, don't. It's really that boring. Though I will say, in the game's defense, is that the gameplay isn't that bad, it's just that you're waiting for a lot of it to get done with. And I'll also concede that maybe it was also because I grinded, meaning that I did take some of my own time just to play the game more, to see what it's more focused on. Since sometimes RPGs like to have mechanics that you would rather need to focus on, if that makes sense.
Though it did allow me to actually think about the music a bit more. The music was done by Nobuo Uematsu, who, if you don't know, is more freelancer, though has ties to Miss Walker. And you know, a bunch of tracks for the Final Fantasy series that are still heralded to this day for having some of the best soundtracks in gaming. And I sadly have to say, it's actually one of his more forgettable soundtracks. Though I would like to say that's more of a me thing, I just genuinely could not vibe with this game feel. And that's not even to call the music bad. Like, I know what it's doing, and it actually does its job pretty well being atmospheric. But that doesn't mean there weren't songs in the game that didn't really, appeal to me. Like the title song, it's really well done. The mechanical tempo was also a really good one, though I consider this to be part of my harp bias. Though I do know one song that I just genuinely did like, that being Eternity, which has Ian Gillian for some reason. I have no idea how the heck they met, and I would love to hear that story. And now I would try to go back to the plot and try to summarize it, but, well, here's the thing. To summarize the plot, it's just to say that nothing of value really happens. I mean, the village that we were in earlier, leaving their home doesn't really matter because by the time we're able to come back, they've already returned for some reason and didn't really fix any of the town's issues. So speaking on those villagers, where did they go? Well, they left to go to Jabral to get away from the land shark. And like I said earlier, that problem was not dealt with. While trying to find them, they try to cut through the Valley of Murals with these monsters, which I actually have to give some legit praise. I really don't know why, but these things actually genuinely scare me. Like, no joke, how it looks on the wall is very terrifying, and it damn well works. Which lets me talk about the art style of the game. As you are aware, this game's art style was done in the Akira Toriyama style done by the man himself, which has its positives and negatives, though the negatives is entirely not on him. Entirely, I'll talk about that in a moment. You see, his art style has an unintended effect on this game, since not only is his art style tied to a game that is considered to be one of the best JRPGs ever made, even if I don't agree with it, it is also tied to the long-running Dragon Quest series, which he is a part of and was one of the foundations for that series. Heck, if you didn't tell me, I would have just assumed that this game was just some sort of Dragon Quest spin-off, and honestly, the name is not helping it. Why is it called Blue Dragon? You're literally trolling the comparison to Dragon Quest. Hell, Blue Dragon is tied to Shu, and let me tell you, he's not an interesting character, which I'll get into later. But for now, continuing on, we then soon reach Mural Town with the Mural people. Where are they from? I don't know. Why are they here? No idea. Are they ancient? No idea. Do they have any importance to the plot? None whatsoever. It's only here to introduce some lore, which actually only becomes way important later. After a bit, you actually reach them, but are immediately attacked and killed by killer tigers. Wait, what? Yeah, this is where I need to mention the game's difficulty. You see, the game is a very easy game, like, easier than most RPGs I've ever played. The only rare exceptions are certain enemies that could just one-shot you, well, mostly depending on where you are in the game. And I really don't get why. It is also seriously not helped with the worst part in the game. It's during where we had to actually wait for the cart to get to the castle, and it is super slow. Like goddamn slow. And this is the only time it ever happened. And even then, it didn't really matter because they get attacked anyway. And the only reason why this is here is just to introduce the final main character, Zola. Sadly and honestly, she's the best character in the game. And that's only because I liked her, I think? And it wasn't certainly gameplay-wise. Because due to how she comes in and out of the party at times, she is significantly weaker than most of the party, and will stay that way throughout the entire game. After soon meeting the King of Jabral, he basically decides it's now time to attack Nene, whose base is now above Jabral. Wow, so convenient. And we destroy his base, really easily by the way. But Nene is able to escape. Seriously, every time I ever have to say his name, it sounds like I'm asking someone to do the Nene. God damn it. We are then asked to just go north trying to find him, which we arrive at a desert, which I just realized there are actually a lot of moons in this world.
That's no moon. It's a space station.
Apparently the ancients had Death Stars, apparently.
While trying to escape its laser, we actually find a bomb shelter village, run by robots, but you quickly learn that they're actually servants of the ancient, which includes Nene. During this time, they actually capture Kalut. This is another moment where the game just spins its wheels for no actual reason. Like, to be specific, I'm literally skipping 4 hours of nothing. Anyway, we soon find her where she actually still has a bomb collar on her. Nene then explains that the collar is a bomb that will go off in an hour, but they can remove it if they get the device that Nene has on him, and do that in under an hour. Which the game does, and I actually thought this was a really cool idea. Anyway, after separating from Zola again, we actually confront Nene again. But this is where the game reveals some stuff, even though it makes no logical sense. He then reveals that the collar was never meant to actually kill them. No, it was there to retrieve the crystals in them. Why does he want the crystals? Well, apparently, and this is revealed later, they're actually a part of his soul. How and why he did this is not really ever explained, but he returned to full power, and apparently he had an aging disease. And again, don't ask, I don't know. It's just thrown out like, of course we knew that shit. Seriously, what the hell? Hell, I wouldn't even have a problem with it. It was shown how it worked and flowed naturally into the plot. They soon get teleported away, and again, don't even ask, I don't even know. This will lead to the third disc. Oh yeah, right, I haven't talked about the disc yet. Yeah, this game is actually one of the first few games that actually used the multi-disc thing for Xbox 360, and god damn it, it was really pointless. Like, full honesty, this game barely feels like it has enough content for one disc, let alone the free disc you already have. Anyway, this is now where I need to talk about the negative arc. See, a character arc is basically where a character goes through a change throughout the story. A negative arc is either pretending that an arc happened but really didn't, or worse, that a character arc regresses a character to an even worse state. So, okay, let me explain a bit. You see, after taking their crystals, they actually lost their shadow. Well, except Shu for a moment, who was only momentarily able to recall his shadow. And while fighting Nene, he basically said, "I'll come back for you," as he retreats. Well, more teleports, but again, that part is never explained. After waking up with the rest of his crew, he basically tells Jiro he finally gets their logic about the never giving up thing. And you would think this arc would be more about his, you know, getting the ability and will to never give up again, or grow stronger so that he never has to do that again. But for whatever reason, that's not what happens. Instead, he has to get the ability to back out that never give up thing? Like, what? I legitimately have no idea what the fuck that even means. Which he learns after stopping a girl from doing the suicide. But anyway, he finally gets his shadow back and he kinda realizes it's his true self, which I just had to groan. Cause if you're gonna do the shadow thing, come the fuck on, at least make it a character arc that is actually worth caring about.
And you want to know what the worst part is? They don't have arcs, the other characters. They don't even get a pretend arc or even an idea of an arc. Just that they're so mad at Nene people doing all this stuff. Like, everything else beforehand wasn't enough, but no. This is where you draw the line. Really? I swear.
With this is where we need to talk about the last mechanic of the game, the Corporeal Form, which is an interesting idea where basically it's kind of like a limit break, but that's it. I think it would have been more interesting that if the limit break was still an option, or the option for a few turns deal a lot more damage with abilities. Though that's just a me thing. Soon enough you meet up with Zola again where you actually get a new airship. This is also when the game opens up, but no, I couldn't care less. And honestly, none of the content's really worth it. So after reaching the old base, it then suddenly rises above to actually reveal a cool visual, as the Earth is actually mechanical and has a bunch of smaller worlds in it, which if I'm remembering correctly, will be the focus in the next game, which I'll talk about in a moment. This is where the final dungeon will be, and it's a real slog. And this is where I need to mention something that I never mentioned before because I literally forgot about it until right just now. You see, in dungeons, monsters don't respawn, which could be an issue if you're trying to beat the final boss but are literally unable to, so you could have a brick game. Because you can't leave this dungeon for some reason, but it doesn't really matter since, again, I broke the game, but it's still worth noting. And actually, speaking of the dungeon design, while it's not bad, it's not very memorable, which is not even a bad thing, just forgettable. Actually, most of the dungeons are just more go to the end of it. That's mostly straightforward with side paths to treasure, which is it. Though there is one dungeon I really want to mention. It's the Underwater Cavern, which really pissed me off because I was stuck there for a while because I was confused on what the heck I was supposed to do. Because the game doesn't tell you how to progress. You need an item, but the item is not in the dungeon. It's dropped off by an enemy that you have to fight, because by this point I was just skipping through enemies because I really did not want to fight weak enemies at this point. It did leave a sour taste in my mouth, and it actually made me look into the developers of this game. Because this is where I need to talk about the actual developers of this game. While Miss Walker does develop, they're more of an overseer of a developer than the actually developing the game. See, the actual developers of the game, Artoons, from my quick research, only ever developed one RPG, that being Sword of Destiny, which I've never played before, sadly, which would actually explain some of the oddities in the design work to begin with. Sorry for this kind of tangent, let's actually just wrap up, okay? Anyway, after a slog of battles, you fight Nene, which I have to repeat again, was very easy for me. He then reveals his last ace in the hole, Zola. Yes, the entire time Zola was a spy, though it begs some questions of like, why? Because at multiple points it doesn't make any sense, but you know what, it's at the end of the game and who really cares? And it doesn't honestly matter as she turns on him. And they say because she became friends with them, which I barely even consider that because, again, there were barely any moments of them together. Like, I don't know, some moments with the party? And it hardly even matters because I don't care about them. They are all one-note characters who I barely even remember their names if I didn't have their names written down. I will give praise to the game though. The true final boss doesn't come from nowhere. Yeah, remember that monster that Nene had with him tied to him? It was actually the monster that destroyed the Ancient. Why he joined up with Nene, I don't really know. But again, hardly matters as we quickly defeat him, save the world, yada yada yada.
This leads to my final question. Is the game bad? Honestly, no. Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, for all the shit I gave the plot, the gameplay, just the general slowness, it's not entirely awful. It's just that it's marred in these ideas and not being able to do much, which is just the core essence of the problem. Honestly, if they had just spent more time maybe making more jobs, or even focusing more on the plot, or creating more stuff for the plot to do, I wouldn't be so mad, because at the end of the day, I just felt like I wasted my time with no plot. Which is something you should never do in a JRPG. Ever. Next time, we're gonna do a proper JRPG. And this one, a lot of people know about it. And pretend that the third game never existed. So, let's go into that.